Good morning and happy Saturday. I'm Kathy Hester and welcome to my kitchen. Today we are working on savory oat recipes, which I'm always extra excited about. Yay, Marilyn is here. I'm so glad to see you. I know there are a couple of other people that are here today too, so feel free to say hi. Let me know you're here. Tell me how the weather is where you are, how you're doing, how you feel about oats. And maybe if you've had savory oats, you probably have had oats in something. You've probably had oat bread at some point, right? So there are some things that are just naturally savory, but we typically think of using oatmeal for breakfast. And we are going to make a savory steel-cut oatmeal today too. Okay, so awesome. So ask your questions as you go along. If you're watching this later in the replay, welcome. And I still want to know about you. And if you have some questions, so you can leave those comments on Podia while you're rewatching this, if you're rewatching it in the class. The webinar is a little different, which is why we have two things connected together. Okay, so the first thing, actually, let me tell you what all we're going to make. We're going to make a butternut squash oat groat risotto. We're going to make steel-cut oat pepperoni crumbles. We're going to make, let's see, what else are we making? We are making curry granola, and that's really good. Like, you can eat it with milk, like for breakfast if you're a granola eater, but you can also sprinkle it on salads or stews or anything to give it a little bit of punch and crunch, which is pretty awesome. And we are also, we're going to make some sausage. So actually in your recipe packet, I've already given you two recipes for sausage. One uses rolled oats and one uses oat flour, but we're going to kind of make a whole new hybrid sausage recipe today. So we'll talk about that. We're going to make a sausage spice blend. And so there'll be a lot of cool things that you'll get to do. First off, we're going to use the Instant Pot just on one recipe for the oat groats. So if you're not sure, these are oat groats, and I actually sourced these from Amazon, and I'll come back and put a link and maybe a link to these because it was hard to find non-GMO gluten-free oat groats. So if that's something you need, you may want to source these. And it's gluten-free harvest. And let me give you a little close-up. So oat groats are the whole oat with the hull removed, right? So the hull is inedible. So let me show you from overhead. See, look, aren't they pretty? Let me get them a little closer to you. There you go. And so compared to something like, let me grab these other oats just to show you a comparison. Okay, these are steel cut oats. These are rolled oats. So the steel cut oats are basically oat groats that have been sliced into 2 to 3 pieces. That's the difference. And so they're both still whole grains. Now, rolled oats is an oat groat that's steamed and then rolled over. So these have been slightly cooked. So that's something else. That's one of the reasons these take less time. Yep, here we go. Less time to cook. Now, oat groats takes a long time. So oat groats really fall into that long cooking grain that maybe wheat berries, spelt, different things like that that maybe you usually soak. Since we're going to use the Instant Pot, I'm not going to soak them, and we're just going to cook them for 45 minutes. And so we'll come back to them later in the class. Oh, hi, Cindy. Oh, I'm glad to know you're Cindy because I wouldn't have known from that name. And you buy yours from Azure. That's awesome. Because you know me, I don't really care where you source things from as long as they work for you. Now, oats are naturally gluten-free, so you might wonder why you need to have a gluten-free label on them. And it's because they're often cross-contaminated during harvest. That's also why gluten-free oats cost more, because they have to do certifications and things like that. So if you don't need gluten-free oats, don't go buying them. There's just no need. However, if you have a friend that's coming over and they can't have gluten, know that they can't eat the ones that don't have the gluten-free label. That's all. It's weird, but it's the way life is. Life is weird sometimes. So first we're going to go ahead and saute some onions. So let me get you back here again. And so I'm going to put the Milty on saute. I'm going to put just a little bit of water in there because that's the way I like to do it. Also going to grab some spoons to stick into my little handy jar I keep over here. We'll keep one here. Hi, Joanne, and you're watching until you go to your workshop. I'm so excited. Joanne is getting to go to her yoga workshop. And I know it's been a while, and so that's not been very much fun. So these are some onions that I had cut and froze, right? So they're frozen, and I'm just putting them right on in there. I am putting some extra onions in because I feel like it. The recipe calls for ½ a cup. I know that Brandy almost always puts all the onions and garlic in, and there's no problem with that. A recipe is a starting point, not an end point. And instead of literally watching water boil or something similar, let's talk a little bit more. So if you wanted to speed up oat groats and you didn't want to cook them in your Instant Pot, you could soak them overnight, and that's something else you can do. We could also make this a sweet dish. So this recipe is from Gluten-Free Vegan Cooking in Your Instant Pot. So I have this one, and then I have a sweet breakfast oat groat. Oat groats are really awesome and versatile. And I know especially Chef AJ really loves them. Like, she's obsessed with oat groats, and that's awesome. They just can tend to be a little harder to source than steel cut oats or rolled oats. And in fact, you can get gluten-free rolled oats right at Trader Joe's. And that's a really cheap place to source those. And we'll talk a little bit later about, should you buy oat flour or should you make oat flour? And I'll give you a hint, you should make it from rolled oats in your food processor or blender. I'm going to use a blender. Okay, just starting to get a little bit of heat. And I can go ahead and, let's see if you can see, I'm going to do the garlic. So I have my garlic presser that I love, and it's been kind of fun, and it's a nice way to take out your frustration. So when you're doing a clove of garlic, I know we've done this 80,000 times for those of you who've been watching, but in case you're new, you can take a chef's knife or a knife that has a wide blade, place it over here, and you want it to be where it's really firm and it's not rocking around a lot. Hold it firmly with that hand and hit it. And then it smushes, and you can take all this stuff off easily. And then we're also going to just cut off that little dry end piece. Let me get a little garbage pail for it. These guys are going, I'm just going to stir these a little bit. And what I love about this is literally you just go back and forth. And you will get that some of the skin or things like that won't be quite as neat and tidy, but you see all that's in there? And I'm just going to scrape that out when the time comes. And then we will just rinse it out real quick. Even though I'm going to use it again later, I highly recommend that you use this and rinse it every single time. Okay, we've got the onions going a little bit now. Let's see if the fan will help at all a little bit. There we go. So since these are red onions, they're gonna not be quite as translucent as the white onions do. But you just want to cook them down pretty well. And I am sauteing these on high. We don't need that one. Okay. I know Joanne loves the rocker garlic press as much as I do, and that makes me happy. It's just another way to bond. Okay. And this is really simple, and in fact, if you were feeling super lazy, as I often do, you could actually not saute fresh onion or garlic, or maybe you're out of fresh onion or fresh garlic. We could just start with the water and cooking the oat groats and put onion powder and garlic powder in there. So never feel like, oh my God, I have to do this, right? There's always a way out. Now, if you have onions, it's great. These came straight from my freezer, so when I get this, these are actually from a couple of months ago when we did the long chop onions and chat in Facebook Live. So I chopped onions for 2 hours. And I'm still having the fruit of my labor months later, even after I've used them in classes, and as well as my normal day-to-day cooking, which is pretty awesome. And Brenda likes the rocker garlic press too. Hi, Brenda. I know it is early on the East Coast. I'm sorry. Don't forget, next week, though, we're going to do our class at 1 o'clock. So it's going to be better for you. One of the things is that it's not going to be probably a 2 to 3 hour class. It'll be more than an hour, I expect. But that's one of the reasons why we're doing it later. I think once it starts getting around 4, I just really start like losing my zest for life. I just get worn out. Okay, we're going to put this in here. And see, I'm just scraping through here and scraping the outside. Mix that around in there a little bit. I'll leave you to watch this excitement while I'm cleaning the garlic press really quick. We're actually going to be doing a lot with the oven and stovetop today, which is unusual for us. So that's going to be kind of fun. This is the only dish that we're cooking in the Instant Pot. You could, in fact, cook this on the stove. If you did, then I definitely would soak the oat groats overnight because it's still going to take a very long time for them to cook. Because this is a long time in Instant Pot time. Okay. All right. So I'm going to turn this off, cancel, keep warm. Because remember, whenever we're going on the Instant Pot, or this is the Milty 2.0, whatever electric pressure cooker you use, when we're going from one cycle to another, we have to press cancel. I'm going to put just a squidge more water in there for the moment. Well, in fact, I'm putting in 3 cups of water. So let's just get crazy. 3 cups of water. We're going to put in 2 cups of oat groats that have been rinsed and drained. And these were really, really clean, but some oat groats are going to be dirty. So just like beans, you would prefer to wash them if you can. But also kind of like beans, sometimes it's not the end of the world. So just look and see how clean or not clean it seems. And then I'm also going to go ahead and put in 2 of my frozen bouillon cubes. And if you guys are new and you don't have that recipe yet, you can go to either plantbasedinstantpot.com or healthyslowcooking.com and look up bouillon and you will find it. I also have some homemade poultry seasoning, but you can use a store-bought as well. I'm going to put a little bit extra. So it says to put 1 teaspoon, but I'm probably putting about 1.5. Because I love poultry seasoning and I really want to get that flavor. And Brenda says, I can't believe you're still using those onions. I bought a 10-pound bag of onions to channel my inner Kathy and chop, chop, chop. It is so nice though. It really is the present you keep giving yourself. And so the only reason these cubes are melting a little bit is because I took them out to prepare for class. Normally I would just throw them in frozen. this just keeps things from falling out of my freezer while I am talking to you. And Marilyn said she thought about me when she chopped up a 10-pound bag of onions. God, you guys are awesome. I feel like we need like some sort of like, we can do it poster with onions or something, you know. Hi, Diane. I'm so glad you're here too. Yeah, and you could use the bouillon powder. So Joanne has the, depending on what books of mine you have or don't have, or what classes you've taken, you may have my dry bouillon, and that's mostly some spices and nutritional yeast. So you could use that as well. I prefer the cubes when I have them, because I feel like I'm infusing more vegetable flavor. And in fact, with the savory steel cut oats we're going to make later, I've actually decided to try adding some bouillon to it today, because I think that'll up the savory factor a little bit. So let me get this guy set where you can see what I'm doing. And we are actually going to have a second cook and a before serving on this. So this is more steps than usual. So why would I cook oat groats and not just go ahead and throw in all the veggies? Well, one really, really good reason is we're doing butternut squash. It'd probably be okay with butternut squash, but it's still going to get really mushy. That's a long time to cook vegetables. So we're going to cook the oat groats most of the way. Then we're going to add the butternut squash and cook an extra 15 minutes. However, if you did not just have some random butternut squash that you happen to save from your winter CSA like I have, that's still hanging in there waiting to be used, we could cook these, the first cook. We could add zucchini, green peas, something like that, and then just cook them a little bit extra too. So you can change that second cooking time depending on what you're doing. And in fact, if you wanted to do like greens, spinach, peas, maybe even asparagus, you could probably just do that on saute and finish it off like we're going to do, because we're going to add some greens. We're going to add kale later on as well. No room in the freezer. You telling me. Actually, you guys remember, and let's change to this camera. I know you're seeing part of the behind the scenes. Okay, we're not ready for you to do that yet. We're going to pressure cook this for 45 minutes. And that means I have to press the plus button. That took a while to decide, didn't it? 45 is very far. And Max is probably going, make the beeping stop. And then, because this is the Milty 2.0, I'm going to make sure that I have it on quick pressure release. And it's going to release the pressure on its own, which is good. And you probably will get to see me jump, which is also fun sometimes, right? Let me see. Let's put this guy over here. I think this will work. More questions. I mean, I knew that was going to come up. Marilyn is intrigued by the large squash in the corner. So let me bring this over, because it is bigger than you think it is. Tomp. Is this not huge? You know, when I do the Misfit Market, I'm like, big as my head. This is like big as a whole family's head. Mia, Howard Jacobson's wife, gave this to me, both as a present and a curse at the same time. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. So I think what I'm going to do is break it down and shred it. And then we can do barbecue, and I can give them some of the shredded things, and we can keep it in the freezer. So again, yes, Joanne, I am encouraging you to fill your freezer far, far, far too much. Okay. And Joanne has a butternut squash that's still hanging in there. I know, it's crazy, isn't it? So let's work on the pepperoni crumbles, because that's going to take a little bit longer than some of the other things, because we're going to cook the steel cut oats part of the way. It's a process, and this is a process that sometimes people get a little wigged out about. So going little piece by little piece, I think will be helpful. I know. So if anybody's nearby and would like some squash, hey, I got squash for you. Squash for days. Okay, so the first thing to do the pepperoni crumbles is I need a cup of water. So let me get a cup of this water. And we're literally going to cook steel cut oats most of the way. So I'm going to put, and I need to preheat the oven. And then I have some pans back there for me. I know, remember the kohlrabi. Yeah. I feel like I almost need some sort of new ninja knife for this to start this squash. So it's going to be very interesting. Okay. So we're going to bring this to a boil, perhaps. Okay, that's at the top part of it. And I'm just gonna, and this would just be on your stove, right? Here we go, that's a little. Okay, so we are literally waiting for this to boil. Now, there are a few things that we can mix in a bowl, which are spices. So on the recipe, we're going to be using smoked paprika, granulated garlic, basil, fennel seeds, salt, black pepper, and you can use some red pepper. So those are all fine. I actually have a pepperoni spice blend, and when I find this recipe, I'll put it underneath the class that I actually made for Chef AJ recently. And I wish there was smell-o-vision. Isn't it pretty? So when I made it for her, I just went ahead and made up a whole big batch. And since I have a big batch of pepperoni spice, that's what I'm going to mix in here. So this recipe comes from Outrageous Oats, which is out of print. But if you want your very own copy, you can get it at virtualvegfest.com, and I can sign it for you because I have some copies. So I'm selling some of my copies through there should you have any desire for it. But in there, we start with this oat base. So basically, we're only going to cook them for like 10 minutes covered once they come to a boil instead of the normal amount. They're still going to be squishy. We're going to mix them with the spices, and then we're going to spread them out thinly on a cookie sheet. And then we just kind of keep crunching it up as it goes along, and that's how you get the crumbles. Now, one thing to know, these are great to use on pizza, on top of salads or soups or stews, but should you decide to stir it in, like to make this steel cut oat sausage, and put it in a gravy, like let's say you're going to actually put it inside the gravy and cook it, it's going to turn back to steel cut oats. But what you can do, and what I do often, is if I'm going to do like a biscuit and gravy, is I'll do the biscuits, do the gravy, toast the other stuff, and put it on top. Right? Because you have a fighting chance. Some of it, the longer it sits, the more it will get soggy. But in general, you're good to go. Oh, Marilyn, dehydrate shredded squash. Tell me more. I do not know about the dehydrating the squash. Do you use it in soups and stews, or do you just come back? I don't know. I want to know. Actually, I really do. Like, I feel like right now we should have a coffee break and only talk about dehydration, but I promise you I'm not going to do that today. Yeah, Joanne's interested too. I know. You've got us wacky people trying to decide what to do. I like that. I think I'm ready to dehydrate. I'm making tempeh for the class, so I've got a couple of good things for next week for you. I'm still going to be working on another couple of videos this week that we're going to look at a little bit together about some of the different methods, but I think I have it down. Okay, and so we're going to cover this. We're going to turn down the heat, probably to 500. Gosh, I hate this thing, but it's the best for classes. I'm just like, how do you think? It's 500 watts, like medium? I need to write out something about that. Does anybody else use an induction burner? Marilyn just said what she uses it for. She uses it in quick breads, soups, and stews. This is all I have to say. You are a dehydrating genius. So when you put it in quick breads, do you have to add some extra liquid to make up for it? Does it rehydrate kind of in the quick bread? I can see in soups and stews, but I am very curious about this. And I'm just going to sit these guys over here. So the reason I'm not actually doing anything with putting spices in the thing is I'm going to use this. And with this blend also, again, I'll show you from overhead. So I put it in the spice grinder like I like to do, and that's how it's so smooth. So if you go by the recipe, you're going to have fennel seeds and things like that, and there's nothing wrong with it at all. It's kind of fun, but this is going to make every bite taste more similar. Brenda said her induction is about 350 for medium. I know. Well, simmer is 300, it says. It's funny how I can be really good with all the appliances, but I don't love the induction burner. And we all know I have a love-hate relationship with the food processor, and that's just because they make it crazy to clean. I miss my old one that just wasn't trying to hold all the liquid from the world inside, but you could clean without like 4 different devices. And Brenda's saying, what do I use my pepperoni spice blend for? So we can make pepperoni out of just about anything. So I could put this pepperoni spice blend on soy curls. I could also, oh my goodness. I am watching this thing boil over in front of my very eyes. Like a really, really, truly hot mess. I got too excited. I have oat slime all over this, which means I'm probably going to need some more water in there too. Okay. And I am getting back to the other thing. I'm just trying to mitigate some of the damage. You ever have one of those days where everything looks like it's just going to go so well, and then it just gets a little weird? I'm suspecting this is that day for me. So you could take soy curls, you could pulse them a little bit in a food processor, and you could have pepperoni bits. You could do that with TVP. Oh my God, there's so much liquid here. You could, that should get most of it off. You could even mix it, like you could put it on croutons, like actual croutons or tofu, and make tofu croutons and make kind of a pizza salad. You could use it in just about anything. That you could put it in seitan and make actual pepperoni. So you could find your favorite seitan recipe and replace whatever flavorings with this, and like roll it into pepperoni logs, steam them, and slice them. What else could you do? You could make like a pizza soup. You know, we make lasagna soup and put that spice in there. It's got a little bit of a heavy fennel flavor. Let's see. Oh, and Brenda got her stick blender from Melty. Yay! And she doesn't love her induction burner either. I know. You know, maybe what I actually need to do is I need to make myself cook meals on it, just so I get used to it, because I only do it for classes and demos, and that's why it makes it a little bit harder. And I'm just going to peek in here for a second. Okay. Just to make sure that it didn't all run dry since I let it overflow. Yeah, and the burner isn't hot, and that is good. And it cleaned up actually respectively amazing. So there we go with that. And also, I think it's Healthy Slow Cooking. On Milthy.com, they still have that stainless steel pan on sale. And you can get $10 off if you're purchasing more than $50, I think it is, using Healthy Slow Cooking. The stick blender, I think, is around $35. The stainless steel pan is around $30. And that's all I can think about right now. And then there's the Milthy 2.0, which is like $99, and you'd get $10 off of that, which is not a lot. But if you're looking for something for an electric pressure cooker, that's the one I'm using the most right now. I have worn out a couple of Instant Pots at the moment, but I have a couple other ones going strong. And it's hard to judge how long something's going to last with using me as an example, because I'm harder on appliances than most people, as you can see. So, yeah, and it is nice that it doesn't get hot. It can be kind of a pain that I have to find a pan that's necessarily going to work on it properly. But, you know, that is also not the end of the world. Okay, let me get this top is not very hot, but I should still, let's check in here and see how these guys are going. Let me let you see over. Okay, so see, we want them to get soft-ish, but it doesn't have to be, you know, as soft. Winky owls. As if you were going to eat it as steel cut oats. And there's a range of how people like to eat steel cut oats. Jill Newsonell and I like ours chewy. Some other people like them more mushy, and there is no right or wrong. It's your steel cut oats. These we want towards chewy. And so you probably could cook these in the Instant Pot as well. And maybe instead of 3 minutes, maybe I cook them 2 minutes. So that's something else you could do. So this is a recipe I developed before Instant Pots. And Maxie says hello. Are you saying hello to the ladies? Yeah. Yes, he is. Do you want to come out here and say hi? Let them see you. Come on. Come on, little muffin. Come on. Come here. Come on. Come on. There he is. Can you say hi? Can you look over this way? Say hi. No. He's like, nah. There you go. So that was your Maxie cameo for the day. He's waiting for Cheryl to come take him, you know what. Hopefully the words must not be spoken. Yeah, there we go. Okay. And typically you wouldn't take the lid off, but I'm living like a savage today. Yeah, you're chewy too. And Marilyn says if she's using dehydrated squash as the main ingredient in a quick bread, then she adds additional liquid. Okay, then it is how I thought it would be. I just don't like to make assumptions. Can you hear Max being very excited? Cheryl is getting out the leash. It often sounds like we're killing him when we're giving him exactly what he wants, which I find very, very interesting. Let these cook just a little bit more. Oh, I lost something over there. So tell me, what are you guys making these days? Because I would be very interested to know that. Have you been getting into all the summer stuff yet, or are you still kind of using up your squash and onions and things like that? Or are you branching out into asparagus and zucchinis and all of the good ones like that? And Diane likes to have her oats chewy too. There we go. Do this. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and let some of this liquid, the more liquid that I can get out of here to a point, the less cooking it's going to have to be for other things. And I'm going to go ahead and just mix in some spice in here. Because with the other one, we're using not quite, but almost a 1/4 cup of spice blend. So turn this off. Okay. So if you're using something like this that doesn't have salt, great. If you're using the directions, you'll have a mixture of spices that you've already done. So I'm going to, since this is ground and that was not, I'm going to start with 1 tablespoon, which is less. Okay. But we don't want it to be too overwhelming. And when you grind things down, some of the beauty is that the flavors are more intense and more mixed well. Okay. So let's take a little taste. Okay. Tastes like pepperoni, but it needs to be stronger. So I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of this. Now there's no salt in this at all. And you could add salt to taste. You could add a salt substitute if you want. Because you can buy pepperoni spice blends some places, I'm not sure where. I know Chef AJ was telling me she found one. That's why she asked me to make a blend. And see that pretty color too. It kind of clues you in that it could be something yummy like chili or pepperoni or some other delectable, wonderful thing. Okay. And so one of the things too, I'm putting this in my mouth, they're not breaking my teeth. They're chewy. They're a little chewier than I might like for breakfast. I think that's about right. Okay, and I'm going to do this with no salt. Let me move this here, and I'm going to prepare one, or maybe we may end up preparing 2 sheet pans. So I'm just going to take, and I recommend, even if you have one of those cool reusable pan liners, that go ahead and use the parchment paper, because this is going to be kind of a hot mess. And you just want to get rid of it. And even if you do use oil, I think this is going to be a better deal than actually putting oil on it. And you'll see what I'm talking about as we go along. Diane's been making a lot of Rancho Gordo beans. Marilyn likes her oats mushy, and Cindy's harvesting lots of onions and garlic, which is awesome. Okay, and here we go. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take this mixture and I'm going to go and put this pot and run some water in it, because we're going to use it again to make some other oats. Okay, and you want to get as much of the spice blend and everything. Typically, I would be a little more OCD and use a spatula. Okay, you just fill this up with water so it'll easily wash off in a minute. Okay, now we're going to spread this, and you want to distribute it as evenly as possible. Meaning, if I left it like this, that big chunk is never going to get dried out. So we're almost, you could probably do this in a dehydrator as well. And that would be something interesting for me to try. Okay. And since we're going to be making crumbles, it doesn't matter if there's like a little, that it's evenly done like a bar would be. I'm just trying to spread it thin. Okay. And we are going to come back like every 10 minutes, and then we're going to kind of chop it up some. Like right now, there's no need. It's a lot like cooking something like give me lean maybe in a pan, something like that that's a little more moist than the end product. But we have to cook these guys, so that's what we're doing. You could also put it in more than one pan, should you want to. If you wanted it faster, I'm just trying to. Actually, maybe I will do 2 pans, just so we can see it go a little faster. And I have an extra pan here. And I'll scoop some in. And Brenda has made, yeah, pepperoni crackers, crisp, chips in the hydrator. Well, one thing too with the tempeh, because I know most of you guys are taking both classes, is that I've actually been doing it in my Breville the best. So I'm just gonna, we'll see if we can speed this process up a little bit. So I'm just skimming some where I know it's hefty, and then that should cut down on our cooking time a good bit. And now you guys can see very clearly why I don't want you to just put this on the pan, right? It is a mess. It's a delicious mess, but it is still a mess. Okay. Go ahead and take some more of this. Let me do this one. Yeah, pizza crackers. You know what? You probably could make the same mixture with rolled oats. And I think that would make a better cracker than this would, because this is going to be kind of chunky. But that's just my idea. You could use the pepperoni spice, though, and put in your favorite cracker recipe to... oh, you know what we could do? You guys have, I think you've all made the bow tie pasta chips in the air fryer book and vegan cooking in your air fryer. That would be really good. And I toss it with nutritional yeast and Italian spice blend. You could toss it with pepperoni and nutritional yeast and kind of make like pizza goldfish kind of crackers. That would be pretty delicious. And that's the beauty of spice blends. You know, is that you can do just about anything with them. We could even put it on kale chips. All right, let me get this off of here. Because what I'd like to not do is introduce too much wet goo when I come back in about 10 minutes to chop this stuff up. Now, here's something else too. If you had leftover oatmeal, that's plain and not sweetened, you can mix a spice blend and try something like this too. So we are going to cook this for about 5 to 10 minutes. Let's check on them at 5. And then let's see what's going on with them. Okay. pizza crackers, anything else. No place for gardening, Diane says. Well, and I'm pretty excited. So Mia, who gave me the giant squash, is also going to hook me up because her and Howard have a giant garden, and I'm hoping that we do a live in their garden in the summer and then go inside and cook something. Because Mia is an amazing gardener, and some of you already know Howard Jacobson from books like Proteinaholic, and he's done some work with Colin Campbell, and he has a podcast called Plant Yourself, which is nice and inspirational. I enjoy it a lot, so I find it helpful in the new normal. So let's see, what should we do next? So many choices. I don't want to make the granola yet. Let's make just a sausage spice blend since we're talking about the pepperoni. I have a spice grinder attachment you guys have mostly seen for my Ninja. You do not need a Ninja and this to make spice blends. This is just what I have. It is more powerful and I do enjoy it. So if you already have a Ninja and it's like that one with Auto IQ Pro or something like that, I don't even know if it's current, but that's where I get this. So Cheryl knew it was getting harder to find. So she actually got me this little Senseo Home spice grinder, and it has 2 of these so that you could do coffee or tea in one, or super pungent spice blends like the pepperoni, sausage, curry, or a spicy blend. You could have another one for the other. You can also, because thrift stores are back open, if you're able to and feel safe about going out. For those of you watching this many months later, this is during the pandemic of 2020. So I was able to go into a few thrift stores last weekend and I felt good about it. There weren't very many people there. Then later on this week we went into another and I did not feel good about it. So if you feel okay, and what I do is I go in front of the store, I see how many people are there, how many people are en masse, and then I make my choice. But there were a couple of thrift stores on a Saturday last week that maybe there were 4 people there. So it was really nice. Yeah, my 5. Yeah, Mia. So anyhow, you could buy a coffee grinder from a secondhand store to make your own spice blends. So if you don't know that you're going to be making your own spice blends, don't worry about it, because you can buy them too. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples of that. Why make your own spice blend? So we made a pepperoni spice blend with no salt. We're going to make this sausage blend with no salt. That's usually the one reason. Another is you get to make it exactly the way you want. So if you like my recipe, great. But if you're like, this is too much sage, next time you can leave out the sage, or you can make a whole half of a batch without the sage and add it in and make it just right for you. So I feel like all of my spice blends are a starting point rather than an ending point. And I have probably 10 different breakfast sausage recipes by now, because I'm a big believer in faux plant-based breakfast sausage. I grew up on sausage and it makes me happy. The spices, I don't need any animals in there. That's not what I miss. Just like when I miss barbecue, I'm not actually missing the meat. What I'm missing is that spice blend, something on a sandwich with coleslaw, right? So like last time we made ropa vieja with shredded sweet potatoes. We could use shredded squash, shredded sweet potatoes, and we could put a barbecue sauce on there, and it's solved. So it's really good for healthy transitional food, or foods that feed our memories, because food is a very big part of our memories too, so don't forget that. Okay. Let me bring up this stuff. So we're actually, with this one, I got some date sugar. And I got this date sugar at Home Goods or Trader Joe's a while ago. Okay. So let me stop for a second and we're going to check on our little pepperoni bits. Okay. Oh, fogging up of the glasses. Move this so I don't burn that. Okay. All right, so you can already kind of see a little bit of it, right? But it's not quite there. But do you see how it started to dry on the top? Okay. And so we can spread it out some more. If we find some spots that seem thicker, right? Because it's going to hold on a little bit differently. But you probably can go 10, 15 minutes. I'm going to let these go 10 minutes for the next time. I'm going to check with ones at the top. They're going to cook a little slower, but actually I'll show you these too, just because this was thinner already, right? We'll check on those in about 10 minutes again. Here's the thing, kind of like nuts, you don't want to overcook it because that's not going to be very helpful. Basically, that's it. It's not helpful. And once it's burnt, you can't go back. So checking it a little more frequently, and you can make larger batches of these, and you could even cook them 3/4 of the way till they separate, but maybe they're not crispy yet, and you could freeze those as well. So I'm going to use date sugar for this, and you have this particular breakfast sausage spice blend recipe. It went with one of the sausages that we're going to use, and you can use brown sugar or date sugar. You probably could use any sweetener or leave the sweetener out if you wanted to. Since we're using this as a spice blend though, it's helpful if it can already be dry. Okay, and bye Joanne, enjoy your yoga class. We're going to do a tablespoon of brown sugar, and this is just really how easy it is to make a spice blend. You're just going to put some stuff in here, and here's the thing, I don't have to worry about that clump because it's going to go in here. If I was doing it a little bit differently, if I was just mixing it, then that would be something I would have to be a little more concerned with and pay attention to. Okay. Then, and this makes a lot, we're going to add 4 teaspoons of sage. And sage is the spice that smells like Thanksgiving to me. So, and we can always put this in and go and change it a little bit. We're going to use, here we go, onion powder, 2 teaspoons of onion powder. And 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. And this is actually granulated garlic. And it doesn't really matter which one you use. That's just what I have to refill this with. This is no longer the same powder. Okay. Then we want to do 2 teaspoons of marjoram. And marjoram is kind of oregano's more floral cousin. And I love marjoram. You guys know I use that a lot in my recipes. Okay, we're going to do, usually I use powdered rosemary because I don't like the way that it pokes my mouth, but since we're grinding it, I'm going to use the regular kind. We're going to use 1 teaspoon of it, and maybe a little extra because I love me some rosemary is like a great flavor to me. We're going to use just a little bit of nutmeg. We're going to use like 1/8 of a teaspoon. Okay, so sometimes the spices in these, you're not using so much. We're going to use 1/4 teaspoon of allspice, but it kind of takes it from just tasting like just a regular old mixture to something a little bit more special. So this, it goes when I push this down. Okay, and we can kind of look. And you want to give it a minute because it will poof up. It's probably going to poof up even now. So see how quick that grinded? This is also how you can, there's still some little pieces down there. So let's do it just a little bit more. Oh, that's kind of awesome. So Brenda makes her own date sugar by smashing the dates on the counter and pounding it with a potato masher. And then do you dehydrate it? Or is it just actually kind of, okay. And to me, this looks great. You can see the texture looks a little odd from actually the rub sage. So I'm going to taste it. I probably added too much rosemary. I'm going to put a little more sage in there, which I cannot believe I'm putting more sage in there. I'm going to put a little more marjoram. And this is how I do everything. So when I wrote this recipe, the spices I had in my spice drawer at that moment, this made the perfect combination for what I was looking for at that second. It's like an old Polaroid picture, right? It doesn't mean you can't recreate it, but it also doesn't mean you can't go a little better. Maybe my rosemary before was not as strong as this rosemary. Maybe my marjoram was a little bit fresher. You know, it's hard to know. I think I want a little more garlic in there too. A little more garlic and a little more onion. A little more onion powder. And that gives it, to me, in a lot of spice blends, I use garlic and onion powder. And I think it helps you cut down on the salt if you choose to use it. But, and it makes it an easier, just all-in-one for a salt substitute spice blend. And this spice grinder was under 30 bucks. And it, again, I think it's under, yeah. Here, in fact, is the other one. I haven't even used it. But it's kind of cool to have, especially if you're in a household where somebody drinks coffee, if it is you or not, right? And I think that that's super helpful. Get this out of here. I'm going to taste this again. I am putting it away in hopes that it is perfect. And I like it. Yeah. So the date sugar, or the brown sugar in this, is kind of making a southern breakfast patty kind of dish, kind of spice blend. You could do this without the sugar as well. I'm going to sit these over here to make a little more room, but you don't have to. I think these are getting pretty close. And when we were talking about things like spice blends, it's kind of personal, but and these are a little bit offensive, but just trust me for a minute. The Savory Spice Shop has like 6 different kinds of sausage spices, and you may not be able to see the names from there. Can you see the names here? There we go. There's frying pan pork sausage spice and gun barrel venison sausage spice. Now, obviously, you can not use meat and use these. So, and there's a chorizo spice. So like some of the differences, this is salt and black pepper, allspice, garlic, mace, nutmeg, and cloves. So they're looking for a gamier meat. So this is kind of upped a little bit. It's a little different and more allspice flavor. This has salt, sugar, pepper, sage, onion, garlic, rosemary, ginger, thyme, parsley, marjoram, red peppers, coriander, and spices. And it has a very different, it's completely different. Like if I gave you a blind smelling test, you wouldn't go, these two are sausage. But they're both very good. They both have salt in it. So if you can have salt, you might want to try that. But like, so these were bought several years ago, and these were like between $3 and $4 each. And it costs a lot less to get the spices that I have that aren't that unique. The only thing that was probably kind of expensive was the date sugar, and getting it at Whole Foods, or not Whole Foods, Trader Joe's or Home Goods made that a lot cheaper too. Yes, and Brenda says, and don't forget the spice grinder is another kitchen gadget, yay! And we do love kitchen gadgets, we being me, and hopefully you too. And Diane said, is it just as good to use a coffee blender? Wouldn't want to try it for coffee as well afterwards. You can, so like here's the trick about using a coffee grinder, especially if you have somebody who is actually, let's take these off on the top. Let's take a look at this. Is that you can run some white rice through it, and that will take out some of the coffee flavor. It will take out some of the spice flavor, but it may not take out all of it. So realize that, okay? Let me let you see these a little bit. So you can use it. Okay. So see how this is kind of almost peeling off? And at this point, we can then put it on this sheet. And see how it's crumbling? And see how some of this is trying to hang on there a little bit. And we just have to help it off. And it does look a lot like if you had put something in a dehydrator. And I'm just letting the thicker one go in there for a little bit longer. And at this point, when I get this off here and crisp it up a little bit and put it into crumbles, I can either cook it longer, like right now it's still not all the way crispy, right? And it's thin enough that this isn't very hot. You should check and make sure it doesn't feel too hot for you. Cheryl would not be able to do this. So you may not be able to do that, and there's nothing wrong with it. But see how this is such a hot mess? This is when you do want something disposable. And see, this guy was a little thick, so I'm going to want him to cook a little extra. Oh, what brand did I will put up my spice grinder. Do you mean the one that I just got, I'm assuming? Deal with this. So throw that away. That's one thing I don't have to think about in my life. Okay, I'm going to crumble these up like this one, who's a piece that's not quite cooked all the way. You can do it like that. Make sure they're on the edges, the thicker pieces. And you can crumble it or two later. Now, here's the thing too. If you live in a humid climate like I do, these are going to get softer. So you may have to undercook them a little bit and just crisp them up before you use them, because it's, see, that's still a little warm. There's nothing sadder than doing something in like your air fryer or dehydrator situation or something like that, and then having it be all icky. So I had made some tortilla chips, actually. Ooh, this one's hotter. See how much we can just peel off. And I had taken it to a veg fest. By the time somebody was able to try it, it was all soft and mushy again, and that was very, very sad. Here, I'll let you see from this angle. Yeah, I will, let me see, the one I just got is Sensio Home, and I will put links to all these. I'll make a thing for the class, and so that way I'll give you the link to oat groats, I'll give you the link to Ninja, and all that stuff. And if there's a spice or something you're having trouble getting, let me know, and I'll make sure I get a link for that too. I like to have a lot of links going to Amazon. I do get an affiliate off of it, but one of the reasons is that we aren't all fortunate to live near all the ethnic specialty stores that are so amazing, but because of Amazon, we can all have access to, you know, wonderful Indian spices and Mexican chilies and, you know, just all the things. Plus, if you're looking for another device and even looking for a spice grinder, you might want to go to Amazon Warehouse, because basically those are returns. So you'll have to see how you feel about getting a return right now at this time in the pandemic, right? But in general, they've been sitting in the warehouse long enough that they should be fine, according to the word that is out right now. Now, that could change. So if you're not sure and you want to ask me later on, do, and I'll since I get stuff from Amazon Warehouse, I try to keep up with all that as much as I can. But so you might be able to get a spice grinder. I know they've got some air fryers and instant pots that are cost less. And I've had, actually my first air fryer was a Warehouse deal and lasted a really long time. I really enjoyed it. And I got my friend one from an Amazon Warehouse deal, and she's still using it. Okay. So you can kind of see, though, how this pepperoni sausage thing is a little bit weird to describe, because it's a little counterintuitive. Let's make this, let's rehydrate it. Now let's unrehydrate it. Now let's do all the things, right? And so again, I'm just going to crumble this up a little bit. And this is almost done. I think the other is going to be really close to being done too. And again, if you're going to freeze it, you could freeze it just like this. And I wouldn't put it in the air fryer just because it's probably going to be too small with the Crispies. But honestly, if you want it to be really, really detailed, you could probably cut these out into little circles for pepperonis. I like the crumble idea better because then it just goes on everything and I don't have to worry that every piece of a circle is crispy enough. Okay, let me let you see what. So I'm just putting those on like that. Okay. This in here, we're just going to put it in there for about 5 minutes, and then that should be that. That should be done. I'm going to wash all this pepperoni off, and I'm going to go ahead and wash the steel cut oat pan because we're going to make some more steel cut oats. Just a little bit different. Some different steel cut oats. Okay, do you guys have any questions about that process? And Marilyn says she hasn't been able to find powdered rosemary. Yeah, I definitely would just grind it up myself. I do that sometimes. You can often find it at that specialty spice stores is when I've gotten it, and I've gotten a large portion of it at one time, like a little bag like that. Let me see if I can wipe this down a little bit for us to not have to see all the other recipes that have taken place. We're going to get that guy. Oh, and Brenda said, you read my mind, I make dehydration templates, and I have one that's 2-inch circles. No, you do not. That's awesome. Totally try that, and let me know how it goes. Because you have a big girl dehydrator, right? Don't you have like one of the fancy expensive ones? I have the cheap one that somebody's friend gave me. But I may end up, I also use the Breville though, and I really do like using the Breville as a dehydrator a lot. Okay, I'm going to move some of this stuff. And in just a minute, we will have all of the pepperoni crumbles done. And I think maybe next we should do, let's make some breakfast sausage too, with our breakfast sausage blend, right? It smells so good. It smells so good. And Marilyn loves that idea. And oh, and Brenda does have them, and she sells them on her website. She also sells nut milk bags. So Brenda, feel free to put your link to your site in here in the comments. And if you want to come back and put it as a comment under the product, please do. It's for an Excalibur and a Sedona, which I do not have. So I don't know how those things would work with mine, or if it would even work. But it'd be interesting to find out for sure. So I would be interested in knowing. I'm going to set this over here, and let me get this for starting some sausage. Okay, so I have a few different sausage ideas going on over here. So we have 2 recipes. I've got one that has no nuts or soy, that uses mashed potatoes, quinoa, and oat flour, and black beans. Then there's another one, and I think we may have made this in an earlier class, that uses rolled oats and walnuts. And it's a pretty amazing sausage, and it has its own blend. And we're going to just kind of make up one now, and I'm going to try and keep notes, because I know I'm going to use 1 cup of quinoa, but we could use any cooked grain that you have, okay? So I just cooked up some quinoa. But if I had leftover rice, millet, anything like that, that would work too. I think what I'm going to do is also mash in some white beans. So I have a can of white beans. I'm going to open that up, and then let's drain it. And you could use really any kind of beans you want. I will say black beans does give it a little more of a sausage color, but right now I'm more interested in just experimenting than coming out. So maybe this will be chickenless sausage or something, because it's not going to have that darker look necessarily. And let's have one last check on our pepperonis. Yeah. Let me let you see that. See how much crisper they are? And it tastes like pepperoni. That's the best part. The most important part, the best part. So I'm going to take out the other one as well. I'm going to leave the oven on though. Yeah, and these are good too. Here, I'll take a good. It's really good. Even without the salt. So I do eat salt. But when you have a really good spice blend, you don't really have to worry about it quite the same way. And so the Instant Pot is going to start letting the steam out on its own. So don't be scared. This might be the first time I didn't jump. So I'm going to save the aquafaba. And if we need some liquid in here, I'm going to use it. Okay. So all we want to do is get a mixture that can be put into patties and then flavor it, much like we did. You know, we just wanted to find something we can make into crispy little pieces. Okay. Get this over here so you can see more of the excitement. Okay, we'll put some white beans over there. And then I'm going to get out the masher. I'm going to use a little masher instead of my big giant one. And you can decide if you want any of the beans to show or not. So already we have something that's pretty wholesome, beans and quinoa, right? Oh, and the other thing I do need to do is I need to let's make some flaxseed slurry. And here's my flax seeds. So I'm going to use ground flaxseed, and I'm going to I think I'm going to start with 2 tablespoons, and we can do 2 tablespoons of water. And in fact, Cheryl's going to go mow, in case you wanted to know. I'm going to go ahead and put some aquafaba in here. Let it soak up the aquafaba instead. So I'm just going to mix this up a little bit. Look at this. And let it gel up while we're doing our other stuff. And this will help ensure it to stick together. I'm going to add a little bit of extra aquafaba. Normally I would maybe do 2 tablespoons or 3 of water. Since this is just a little thicker, that's the reason I'm using a little bit more. We want it to be kind of that gross, runny egg sort of texture. Okay, so back to mashing the beans. That way that'll be ready. Is this the sausage patty recipe I was working on? I work on so many, so I'm not sure. This is a brand new one. Seriously, I'm making it up as we are here. I looked to see what beans I had in my cabinet. I cooked up a little quinoa because we can all use a little more quinoa in our lives. And I just thought it would be fun because pretty much every book I ever have has a sausage recipe of some kind in it, or a sausage spice, because I just really love those flavors. Okay. All right, so then we're going to go ahead and put this flaxseed mixture in here. And I know so far we haven't done anything with oats yet, but we're getting there. I promise you. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to use oat flour or oats. I have oats here, so I'm thinking I was headed that way. Yeah, you know what? It's something I just decided to do, just this second. So sometimes, that's why I like to make recipes up some while we're in class too. It's because then you get to see where my wacky brain goes when I'm trying to make things, and also sometimes I don't always explain where those ideas come from, and I think this gives you a better idea. Okay. I think I want to mash this a little bit more. And you can make these any patties, you can change the spice blend and make it something else, right? So we can make it where it tastes like Italian sausage, or we can make these into pepperoni burgers, right? There is no limit to your imagination. So one of the things we're going to do, though, the most important thing is our spice blend. So let's go ahead. I think we're going to need at least a tablespoon. And remember, if yours isn't ground as much, you may need to use more. So we'll get that in there. And I want it, since I don't have all the dry ingredients in there, I want this to be a little heavier taste of it. And then that's not enough for me, so I'll put 2 tablespoons. I am also going to put some salt in here. You could put a salt substitute. I'm going to do it to taste. I find when you add in oats, a lot of times you do need more seasoning and more salt, just because oats and beans sometimes too can kind of be the anti-flavor, or they kind of soak up flavors a lot. Okay. And Marilyn says she also uses sometimes a flax egg and an aquafaba egg. So we are kind of combining the whole shebang. Okay, let me let you see this. So it's still kind of a heavily wet mixture. Yeah, that's better. That tastes more like sausage to me. I'm not feeling like I have to squish every bean, but you could if you wanted to. It just depends on your picky eaters and how you feel. Some people like finding a surprise bean, some people do not. So let's go ahead and put about a 1/2 cup of oats in here. And we could use oat flour, you can use whichever. The oats are going to be a little crispier, make a crispier patty than the flour. And I think I'm going to have to get in here with my hands. I think it's that time. Okay. And also this, when you get in there with your hands, like I can tell right now, this is so not enough. So I'm going to go ahead and add the other 1/2 in there. Because first you have to make it moist enough, then you have to make it dry enough, right? So it has to be kind of, if you do it where it's too moist, the inside is always going to be a little extra mushy. And some people don't like that about veggie burgers and veggie sausage. It doesn't really bother me, so I'm not really those people. But I tell you what I'm going to do. So let me put 1 cup oats. Wow, if you guys can see this, I'm writing with my left hand. It is very bad. Okay, let's go ahead and put some oat flour in here too. Now, typically I don't buy oat flour, but I have some right now because I got it on sale. But what you can do is you can take the rolled oats and put it in your blender or your food processor, and you can come out with oat flour. And let me go grab, let's start with a 1/4 cup and see how this goes. Okay, so I'm going to get about a 1/4 cup. Get this where you can see everybody. Okay. I think that's going to be about right. But you're really going to want to knead it in and keep turning the middle out so that you're getting the sticky side on the extra flour. That, to me, that's the quickest way to mix it up. Okay. There's still some more, so maybe not quite a 1/4 cup, something a little bit less than that, up to a 1/4 cup. But see, there's still some squishier parts, so it's okay. Still just squishing it in. And honestly, if maybe you have bad wrists or something, you could do this in a food processor if you wanted to. But I think that's pretty good. It should feel a little clay-like. Okay, I am going to go wash my hands because of this. That's not going to work out well for me to get this to cut parchment paper and all that. So have you guys made sausage patties? I would be really interested to know if you have and what kind of base you used. Because you can make it with seitan, which is just a wheat gluten flour. And I have some that do that. I've made it with oats, I've made it with rice, I've made it with walnuts, I've made it with potatoes. Really love my sausage. So, and I think we're going to have 2 pans of sausage. So let me wash this real quick. I think this is the first class ever that I've had to wash sheet pans. So that's pretty amazing. And so what I'm going to do again, because we're doing this as an oil-free, it's oil-free and nut-free sausage and gluten-free, which can sometimes be a little harder to come across. Actually, let me cut that off too. Anybody else make sausage? I'll just keep this here. It's so, you guys got quiet all of a sudden. Very, very quiet. I'm going to set this over here for another time to use that aquafaba. If I'm not going to use it today, then actually what I'm going to do is freeze it. So I actually have ice cube trays of aquafaba in my freezer right now. So I really enjoy doing that. Okay, I'll get this guy here. And again, we're just going to cut off that parchment paper. And you could use one of those reusable nonstick ones if you want. That's fine too. There is no, and Brenda's never made sausage patties before. So now all that's changed. I want all of you making all the sausage, please. Okay, and depending on what size patties you want to have, you can really just change what scoop size you use. So I'm going to make these kind of, I'm going to call them biscuit sized, okay? Or I can make little ones. So we're going to do this and then we're going to press them down. And this is how I make burgers too. I do have another way that I'm getting ready to try making burgers, but right now this is my go-to. We'll make one of big patties and we'll make one of some smaller patties. Okay. Oh, these are really burgery sized. So these are like English muffin sausage sized. Another thing I really love to do, because I love sausage so much, is if I have a frozen waffle, I will actually put my patty in between 2 little waffles or pancakes. I do that all the time. It's so delicious. But you may not be a pancake weirdo like I am. And see, these are really burgery sized. So these are large sausage patties. But see how it's kind of like clay. The texture is clay, and I find that that one is a texture that I usually enjoy. And we'll see. It could be that I don't have as much moisture as I need. We'll find out at the end. And then that's why I'll give you the recipe after we check all this instead of before. So I'm definitely going to leave these in for like 15 minutes because they're super big. And then we'll check on them. So I'm still using 350. Okay. And now we'll do the second pan. Okay, let me find a smaller scoop. There we go. This is more of a tablespoon size. So this is more of like what you think of as a normal size sausage patty. And these are going to cook a lot quicker too. And there is no right or wrong. It's just whatever works for you and your needs. And after you cook these, again, you can cook them till they're not too terribly crisp or dried out, and you could freeze them and reheat them. That's really the trick as far as making some of these staples ahead and to use later versus I'm going to serve these to a group of people right now. If you're going to serve them right now, you want them to be just as dry and ready to eat as you'd like. You could also probably pan fry these. I tend to just do the first bake and then reheat them in a frying pan. But you could also reheat them in the oven. It's totally up to you. Let's see, I think that's going to make one last little guy. And get all these guys out. And see, to me, this is a little more sausage patty sized than burgery sized. And it just depends on the aesthetic you're going for. Don't you like that sausage aesthetics? Maybe that's an advanced class we can have, right? Let's make sausage all the ways. And I'm just pressing these down and forming them into rounder patties. I tend to do that. You guys have seen me probably do it before. Is I just curve my hand and just go around. So it really is not anything worth of science. And it doesn't have to be curved perfectly anyhow. It just depends on you and what you care about. The thing that is important, because this is a little guy, a little smaller than the others, is I want him to still be about the same thickness rather than the same diameter so that he won't get burned. I'm also putting him in the middle because that's probably going to cook a little bit slower than on the outside. Oh, it's hot to have the oven on today. What's it like where you guys are? We've got the air on today, but for 2 days we had the whole house open. It was in the 60s. I don't know what was happening. This weather, and I'm still waiting for the pterodactyls to just kind of come down from the sky or something, because it was 90 degrees, then it got to 60 degrees, and now it's back up to normal, I think. Are you guys noticing any weird weather where you guys are? This is lovely June. Okay, and I'm going to put these guys in too. All right, and the next thing we're going to do is make some savory steel-cut oats. Do you have any questions about any of that yet? Because if you do, I'm here and I'm ready to answer them. Let me do. And I'm also just taking those last notes on the sausage. Okay, here we go. We're in an ozone alert. Oh my gosh, it's hot in the mid-90s. Okay, so you're definitely feeling it worse than me. Which of my books has a pancake recipe? Okay, and actually, you know what? You can go to healthyslowcooking.com and look for enchanted pancakes, and they have beans in them, and it has a peach compote that you can make a different compote with. But the bean book, Easy Vegan, I'm trying to think of anything else. It may just be those two because Instant Pot and air fryer aren't really good for pancakes in general. So that's why that's going on. But pancakes are kind of fun. And you can make pancakes healthy. You can literally take leftover oatmeal, Mix it with a little bit of spices, maybe some apples. If you do nuts, some chopped pecans, and you could fry that up and have a pancake. I know it's not a fluffy, amazing, perfect pancake, but that's also okay. Everything doesn't have to be the way it is in your imagination, if that makes sense. And I think what we're going to do is we'll start these oats, then while they're cooking, we'll go back to the oat groat risotto. Okay. Alrighty. So I need to peel and chop an apple, but I may just chop an apple instead of peeling it, because I know it's organic, and that's good enough for me. So here's what's kind of interesting. We're making savory oats, but I'm still using an apple. I love apple thyme flavors in savory dishes. It's just something that I just love. I love in very weird, possibly ways. But you know, you got to take what you can when you can. So I'm just going to cut up this little apple. You could use any kind of apple you like. You could use a sweeter or a savory more apple, like a Granny Smith apple. I'm not even sure what kind of apple this is. Let's take a slice. It's a delicious apple. It's got a little bit of sweetness, but it's not overly sweet. There we go. Okay. So I'm just going to chop this up. So I just love, and one of the things I love to do too is to take vegan sausage. So I'll saute onions and a little bit of garlic, an apple, and chop up a sausage if it's like in a link form. And sometimes I'll even put a little bit of truffle oil in there and just serve it like that. It's kind of amazing in the winter. And maybe serve it just over a bed of greens or something like that. And it's pretty lovely. One of the reasons I didn't chop up the apple earlier, though I could have, is it would brown, and that's just oxidation. It wouldn't be bad. It wouldn't be unusable in any way, shape, or form, but it's just not as pretty to look at. You can cut it up earlier and do some lemon juice, but I didn't really want to affect the flavor of the dish. So that's why I did it the way that I did it. Let me just put this in here, and we can go ahead and get 1.5 cups. Well, we'll put a little bit of water in there. I also added to this recipe that I'm going to saute some onions. So let's get this guy up fairly high. We'll put a little bit of onions in there, because I thought that might make it taste a little more savory too, and kind of give it a little bit of an interesting flavor. And I am also adding then some bouillon into it as well to kind of infuse it with some of those savorier flavors. And we're going to either serve with some slices of those sausage patties or a sausage patty on the side for it. I tend to just kind of crumble up the sausage and put it on top, and I like it that way. But again, remember that it is going to get mushier and it will rehydrate. Those guys are smelling good. Yum. Let me get this where you can see it. Okay. We're just going to saute this a little bit. If we wanted to, we could add some garlic to it as well. You could, in fact, make this apple thyme sausage spiced oats with none of the sausage on it at all. So I could actually put some of the sausage spice blend in there, and that would be a whole other way that we could get spices infused into that blend. You know what? I think I am going to put a little bit of sausage spice in here, just for kicks. Just go ahead and put it in there. Put about a teaspoon in, and we'll experiment with it and find out if it was a good thing or a bad thing. Now, you could put savory things in here instead of apple. Apple kind of goes between the two. But we could put butternut squash in here and cook it with the oats or something like that. Oh, it smells really good. I'm going to go ahead and just get the apples in there. Let them just kind of saute in some of that spice. And this is a little different than how it's written, but that's the benefit of getting to come to the class. And because I put the sausage spice in the recipe it's calling for garlic powder, thyme, and rosemary. Now I'm still going to put that thyme in there. And in fact, I'm going to turn this off for a minute. Okay, so I'm going to put about a half a teaspoon of thyme, a little bit more. And then I was going to put in some rosemary, but I know the sausage was a little extra rosemary, so I don't think I need it. I think that the rosemary was taken over by that sausage spice that I put in there. Okay. And so next, I'm going to put in my half cup of steel cut oats. Mix that around real good. Okay, and then we're going to put, how much? About 1.5 cups of water with that. Where I would be on this is I would not put milk in these necessarily, and we're going to also then put our bouillon cube in there to kind of flavor it with the loveliness of onion, carrot, celery, and some nutritional yeast, things like that. And it's definitely a nice savory flavor. So we're going to bring that to a boil. And then we're going to turn it down. And then it's going to be about 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how you like your oats, right? So I'm going to see if I can let it boil or come close to a boil and then put the lid on it and see if I can trick myself into not overflowing the world. Let me take a few of these guys back. Okay. So we've done a lot. We've done a lot. So even so far, we've got pepperoni crumbles we've made. We've almost made the risotto with oat groats. And the one thing we're going to have to do is finish off the oat groats, finish off this, finish off the sausage, but then we're going to make the granola. So I'm going to take these little patties out, and we'll look at these for a second. I'm just going to sit it on top of here. Okay, so they look a little bit like cookies. How I know that they're ready to turn over is they're a little bit tougher on the top, and they'll come over. There's no oil. I find that this usually works just fine with parchment paper. You can use a spatula. you do not have to use your hands. I have some calluses built up, so I can do that. Don't make it hard on yourself. Now I'm going to look at these big burger guys. And actually, these probably could be turned too. So let's look at these. These are going to be, because I put them in a little bit earlier, about 5 minutes earlier. And I probably should use a spatula, not necessarily because they're so hot, but I don't know if they're going to crumble if they get too much weight on their own. Nope, they're not crumbly at all. Okay. And I'll probably cook everyone. That's good. The date sugar is really good in it. I'm going to cook them another 10 minutes. So with the little sausage, that should completely cook them and have them about ready to eat. With the burgers, it'll probably have it about ready to freeze. Okay, we have a boil. I am turning it to a simmer. Maybe. Okay, let's try that. We'll sit that over there. Okay. Brenda said, what was in the pot before the apples? I missed something. I thought it was the oats. Onions. I had onions, and then I put sausage spice and some spices, then the apples, then the thyme, then the oats, then the water, and the bouillon. I think that was all. So, okay, let me get this stuff out of the way, and then let's finish up this oat risotto. Okay. This is like my Instant Pot cam over here that I use. All right, so this has been down from pressure for a long time, so we don't really have to worry about it. Let's get that fan back on. I'll let you look in here. It's going to be a little more cooked just because it's been sitting there, and it's going to need more water. So one of the things that it says in the recipe is that if it looks like this, you could eat it right now if you were not going to put anything else in it. So you could make it this far and serve steamed vegetables, crumbled sausage patties, but we want to cook this butternut squash in there. So for it to come up to pressure, we're going to have to add another cup or cup and a half of water. Yeah, and exactly, Brenda. So I did some changes on the recipe for these. So what I did is I went ahead and sauteed probably half a cup of onions. I used 1 bouillon cube, and I used a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half of the new sausage blend that we made. I thought I would make it kind of sausagey without the sausage actually having to go on it. Okay. All right. So here's what we know. We know we need more water. And if you put too much water in at this step, we can cook it out on saute later on. And this is where I was saying too, like if we weren't using winter squash, if I was using, let's say zucchini, I could just turn it now onto saute with a little bit of extra water. But you see how that gives it that risotto creaminess? It's kind of awesome. Okay, so I think we may still need a little more water. I think this is going to be more like a cup and a half. And some of that is because I let it sit there for a while. So let's see if we get the burn notice or not. Come on, you can do it. You can do it, little guy, you can do it. Yay! And we're just going to cook it for another 10 minutes, I believe. 15 minutes. Okay. And we'll also go ahead and do the quick pressure release. Okay. So there's that. Do you have any other questions, Brenda, or anyone? Okay. Let's see how these guys are doing. It smells really good. The sausage spices were a pretty awesome addition, I think, to this. But maybe that's just me feeling what my love for all things sausage, which exists in my world. Now, I know I said I was going to give these 10 minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and check on these top little guys because I don't want them to get too crunchy. Yeah, I think that's probably good. Okay. So these, I'm not going to eat them right now, so I would like them to be just ever so moist in the middle. And let me sit this down, and then I'll bring you one to open up. Okay, let me see if I can get, nope, let's see, there we go. So see how it's a little moist, but it's not completely mushy. So, and these are going to heat up again. That's pretty good. So on the sausage recipes I gave you, this one's more sage heavy from the blend we used. The one with the walnuts, if you can eat walnuts in your diet, if you're not allergic or it's not something that you're avoiding, that's the crunchiest one, and I like it a lot. The one with the potato is kind of cool too. And the oats give it a little bit of the oat flour gives it a little bit of a crunch. So yeah, these are perfect right now for freezing, and then you can always crisp them up all the way later on. And I'm still going to leave the timer on for those other guys. Since I'm going to freeze them, the other guys being the burgery sized ones, since I'm going to freeze them, I don't care if they're a little more underdone in the middle, because I'll just cook them a little bit longer anyhow. Also, sometimes in the freezer, things are going to get a little moisture and get some ice on it and things like that. Oh, and Marilyn also dehydrates kale and spinach. Oh, yeah, that would be great. Have you made like kale and spinach kind of flour, or do you granulate it, or do you just leave it in like, what would the word be, chip form? And actually, I'm going to go ahead and take these out too. Yeah, these are good. So see how I could pick them up? That's a way that you know, and you can do that without using your hands too. So again, you don't have to put yourself into danger to make these. It's not important. Okay, and I'm going to look at this and give it a little stir. Okay, I think it probably needs to be up a little bit higher. We'll try 5 soup and see how that works. Okay. So while all that's going on, we could go ahead and start mixing up our granola. And so savory granola is kind of a new thought to me anyhow. Maybe it isn't to you. In this recipe, I use cashews and coconut. You don't use it, it can't be in your diet, you're allergic to it, leave it out. So if you just can't have if you just don't like cashews, you could use pistachios, you could use pumpkin seeds, you could use lots of things. So, and I'm also using golden raisins, because I like that kind of sweet and salty thing that we're getting from this savory granola. So I kind of like it to be a little surprise. I have another savory granola. This is from Outrageous Oatmeals. And I have one that's with black olives and sun-dried tomatoes. So think of it, Cheryl loves to use it as a soup topping, because I'll make like a pureed butternut squash soup or pureed tomato soup, something like that. It's also good on salads. Oh, nice. Marilyn does have kale and spinach powder, so I haven't made those yet, so that's kind of exciting. And so we're going to make a flaxseed mixture for this. And I'm trying to keep a good eye on the oatmeal so it doesn't go anywhere unpleasant. So maybe we'll take them down to 4. Okay, so I'm going to take a couple of tablespoons. Now, the recipe itself does call for oil, but you don't have to. We can use 3 tablespoons of this instead, right? So there's always a way out. So if you use oil, you're welcome to do it. If you don't think a second thought about it. Okay, and I'm going to put in, let's see, 2, 3. We'll just eyeball it. I'm not too worried about it at this moment. And since I'm not using aquafaba, it's a thinner mixture that's going to thicken up as we're doing things. So we'll notice that. See how it's already starting to get thickened? But just not quite as fast as it did in the other one. Okay, so let's get a bowl, and we are going to add in a cup of rolled oats. That's about a cup. And again, these are the Trader Joe's rolled oats that I'm using. You can use any rolled oats, but just if you've been looking for gluten-free ones, know that you can get them there. We're going to use about 1/3 of a cup of golden raisins. But if you love raisins, use more. If you hate raisins, leave them out. And I'm going to use about an equal amount of shredded coconut. I am using this shredded coconut. It is quite dry, and I usually like this better for mixtures like this than I do the big, beautiful, expensive flakes. Mostly because they're very expensive and you're kind of wasted on this, because as we cook it, they're going to get drier and crispier. So that's not helping it. It's not using it for its best good. And I do have some whole cashews. You do not have to use whole cashews. We all know my feelings, but that's what I got. So I'm going to put some of those in there. And this will be made better by the cooking. So that also is kind of helpful. So I don't mind using my more expensive ingredients for that. And let's see, we're going to put about a teaspoon of garam masala. And garam masala is just like a homemade Indian curry mix, and you can buy it. I'm going to put a little bit extra. I'm going to put like 1.5. And it has some cinnamon flavors in it, which is really nice. Then we're going to go ahead and use some granulated garlic, about 1/4 of a teaspoon. And chili powder, which I did not bring over. And in fact, I am out of my Indian chilies right now. So I'm going to just skip the chili powder for 2 reasons. 1, I'm out of it. 2, I know that Cheryl is not a huge fan of it. So we're going to skip that. We're going to do 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. So a lot of times when you use garam masala, you still kind of enhance it with some extra spices depending on the dish. And we're going to use 1/4 teaspoon of coriander after I have a coughing fit. Sorry, it's the spice hazard. I'm always inhaling things. We're going to put 1/4 teaspoon of coriander in there. And usually, like with coriander, cumin, garam masala, I buy those when I can at the Indian market because they're so much cheaper in larger bags. I keep them in, first I seal them up and rubber band them, and then I put them in another airtight container and put in my pantry. Okay, and then we're looking for just a little bit of ground mustard. And it says 1/8 of a teaspoon, but I'm probably going to put about 1/16 of a teaspoon. And a lot of times, mustard seeds are the hidden ingredient in a lot of your favorite curries, or at least they are mine. Okay. And actually, we'll save that one. So I'm just going to mix this up. And actually, while I'm doing that, I'm going to run to the other side and just check on our oats that are cooking, because we all know that I do better with Instant Pots than I necessarily do with stovetop. Okay. It's cooking along nicely. It smells really yummy. Okay. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. Okay, mix that up. Now, typically the oil and things are what's going to kind of help hold it together more, and an oil-free version is going to be less cohesive. It may be a little more, less clumps of granola and more like little pieces of granola, and that is also fine. Let me move these things as well. And if I need extra liquid, I'll use it, but I want to give this a really good chance. Now, you could still put something else in here too. You could put, I don't know, you could make this kind of a sweeter thing. Right now, the only thing sweet are the raisins. And you want to get it clumpy, but not too clumpy, because again, kind of like the sausage that we made earlier, right? We're kind of making it wet, then making it unwet. And see how it's becoming more cohesive and more evenly coated with the flaxseed mixture, okay? And this time I am going to use my silicone mat. And it doesn't matter which one you use or have at all, like not at all. You can put it right on your roasting pan if you're willing to clean more than I am. There's just no problem with that. So if there's, and see how we've got a couple of clumps, and that's good. That will make it seem more like regular full of oil granola. But you can think of it as granola or a topping, and that's totally up to you. Normally, I don't have big giant cashews. I just have pieces of cashew, but I just decided to try it. It's going to have a really nice visual effect on a salad to have, you know, it is very rich, both money-wise and taste-wise. So, okay, we're going to put these in the oven, and we're going to let that crisp up a little bit. And let's check it in 10 minutes. You may notice that when I do classes, sometimes I actually check things sooner than I do in the recipes. So when I'm multitasking like this, and maybe you're multitasking every dinner, right? You could be making savory granola, you could be cleaning all the greens for a salad, you could be making salad dressing and all those different things. At that time, I really do recommend that you check more often rather than less often, because you can stop a big mistake from happening. And maybe you don't have as many big mistakes as I do, but I'd like to keep it that way. Let me let you see where the oats aren't done yet, right? So I'm just going to stir it around. I'm going to scrape on the bottom a little bit to get those not quite as hung in there. Do you guys have any oat questions or savory oat questions that you're dying to know right now. And again, like these sausage crumbles, you can actually get the recipe. Well, these are the pepperoni crumbles. You can get the recipe for the sausage crumbles on healthyslowcooking.com. And I think a lot of people see how they're just, I just love these guys so much. And I think they're so fun. And because it's humid, it's not as crunchy. But you know what will happen if I make a pizza? Or even I could make a pizza potato. I know a lot of you guys are on Chef AJ's diet, or eating plan, sorry, didn't mean to say the D word. You could have a baked potato. You could have a nice tomato. You could have these crumbles and some nutritional yeast, and that would be a pizza potato. And so what I would do at the end is I'd put the crumbles on the top and put everything in the oven or air fryer, just enough for it to crisp up, and that would be really awesome. But I really enjoy these, and I think not only does this show how versatile oats are in general, it also shows how important spice blends, seasoning your food can be, because like everyone thinks, oh, oats. So the thing that we have closest to boring oats is right here, and it's flavored with sausage spices, apples, and we could crumble some other stuff on top of it. And I think that's pretty amazing myself. And you can make kind of a risotto with steel cut oats. And I think, in fact, on Healthy Slow Cooking, there is a recipe for steel cut oat risotto. I think there still is. It's definitely one in Outrageous Oatmeals. And it's just, when you think of, one of the reasons I like making single ingredient or single subject cookbooks is because it makes you dive so much deeper into what it's capable of. Just like the slow cooker, the Instant Pot, the air fryer, right? But like oats and beans are magic. They really, cauliflower is the chameleon that we all know about right now, but remember, I think it was a couple months ago in a class, we made chorizo using beans, right? I make pancakes using beans. You can do all these things that are sweet and savory with beans, just like oats. Okay, no questions. You guys are, oh, here we go. I did not scroll down. Marilyn says, Costco had the best price I've seen on whole organic cashews. They might not still have them, but I bought mine last winter. Well, I will check. The other thing, so the quinoa that I used, and Marilyn, I don't know if it was you or someone else in class, was telling me that Costco had pre-washed quinoa. Because the reason we don't eat quinoa all the time is because it's a pain. You have to put it in the strainer and you have to rub it to get that coating off that tastes nasty. But so I went ahead and just invested in this, and since it's pre-washed, I don't have to wash it at all. I mean, I could rinse it if I wanted. But I've been loving it. So I do like Costco a lot too. So, and oftentimes you can get really good prices on dates and some other things. I actually got some acai bowls that I decided for we've made one trip to Costco. And so on our one trip to Costco, that's what we did. Let me get some of this out of the way and we'll finish up our risotto because it is ready for us. Okay. I'm going to let some of that steam not get on. Okay. There we go. And I just love the way oat groats, because of their natural fats, go ahead and make this extra creaminess. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put some nutritional yeast in here, And I'm probably going to double the amount of nutritional yeast. Or at least put a little bit more in. I feel like I want it to be all kinds of cheesy goodness today. And this is what's going to give it that cheesy, cheesy flavor. And we put some poultry seasoning in there before, but we're going to taste it to see if it's good enough, if we need to put more in there. And I'd say we do. I'm going to put another ½ teaspoon of poultry seasoning in there. Actually, let's make it a teaspoon. And I'm going to put some salt and pepper in here to taste as well. Oh, yeah, Marilyn, I sure can put the link to the large scoop. I think it's just OXO. I think it's a 1/4 cup scoop, honestly. Okay, so we've got that kind of ready. And I've got this just on keep warm. And I'm going to tear up some kale to go in here. And actually, we can just do that this way. I'm just going to tear it up into some pieces. I could have had it cut up earlier, but I did not. And this is something you can do with any greens. It's also a good way to get people who don't like to eat greens to eat them. I started with Cheryl, I started mincing them. And now I don't have to mince them anymore. Actually, that one doesn't look awesome. I just grabbed these out of my pre-washed container in the fridge earlier today. And sometimes I'll even go ahead and have it torn off the stems. You could put the stems in there. There's nothing wrong with them, but you're going to have to cook them a little bit longer. Like I love long cooked collard stems and kale stems. It is not Cheryl's favorite. So that's one of the reasons I don't do it that often. Okay. And so just like we were talking about earlier too, is like if we had done this and we wanted to do peas and zucchini and asparagus, so then I'm just going to let this heat go ahead and cook it down. And you can freeze this as well. And I topped mine in the book. I had actually gotten some vegan feta, or you can make a tofu feta. I think I have a recipe for that in the bean book. And maybe some toasted pumpkin seeds. This is a very much an autumn dish as is. Or let's use up that one last squash that we have. Okay? Let me take a taste. And that is risotto everybody can get behind, right? It's a whole grain. It makes itself creamy, just like risotto rice. Because remember, risotto rice is not, it's just a white short grain rice. Let me get this, because that's our granola saying, check me, make sure that I'm okay. Oh my God, you guys, that smells so good. Ow. And my hand must be wet. Oh, okay. So I'm going to just go through here. And I'm just going to turn it over a little bit. Okay. And I'm just going to go maybe turn it over or break up some of the things that seem thick or a little extra wet. Just stirring it around. But see how some of it is coming in clumps? That is purely due to the flaxseed mixture that we used in this one. If you used oil, that could also do some of that to help it hold together. And it probably needs another 5 minutes. I'm going to check on it while we look at our savory granola. Goodness, savory steel-cut oats. This is our savory granola. Because I think our oats are going to be about done. So let's check those guys out. Turn it off real quick. And so at this point too, I would go ahead and decide, is the flavor good? So let me take a taste. Because here's some things we could do to it. I love that little sweetness from the apple with the sausage, spices, not the actual sausage. It definitely needs some salt and pepper to me. And I think probably going to put about 1/8 of a teaspoon of pepper. The salt, our salt substitute, will also help it seem more savory. We could at this point too, again, so even with this, I could come in and put some zucchini here at the end, some green peas, maybe some shredded carrots, or I could have put some longer cooking vegetables in when I put the apples in. So that's something else that you could do. I think that I may want a little nutritional yeast. Actually, with the salt, it tastes just fine. So one of the ways, I'll show you how I might serve it. I have, okay. Okay. Isn't this fox bowl so cute? So I would go ahead, and to me this makes about enough for 2, depending, right? Depending on what else you're having with it. This out of the way. Okay, so we'd have that. And then maybe we'd go ahead and crumble up a sausage patty on top of it. You could also put like some parsley or fresh thyme. But this is the way that I usually eat it. And that way, this time we're going to get double sausage whammy. Oh my God. It's really good. I highly recommend adding some bouillon and a little bit of sausage spice to the cooking. I think that really upped it a lot. The oats are still kind of chewy, so you could use some extra liquid and cook them longer if you'd like them less chewy. I do find, so a lot of times I will cook my steel-cut oats in the slow cooker, and I never do that for savory oats. And there's not really a nice way to put it, but it kind of, because they break down so much and they're so smushy, ooey gooey, it just doesn't have the texture. I mean, I guess it's a little bit like congee, but slimier, if that helps. So I do encourage you, if you're going to make savory oats, to do them in the Instant Pot or on the stovetop and not in your slow cooker, just because texture does become an issue. So that's where I am with that. Let's see if there were any other questions that I've missed. Nope. Wow, today has just flown by, hasn't it? Can't believe all we have to do is just check on our granola, which is probably done now. Oh yeah. Let me show you this. I don't know if you can hear the sizzling. There was a little bit of condensation on the hot plate. You hear it? And so I like the way the raisins get kind of plump and browned. I just think that that's really pretty. And this is a really pretty mixture. So even if some of these clumps are a little damp, though most of these are not, as it cools, it's going to harden up a little bit. And there's going to be some that aren't clumps too, right? Like this. But you know what? Those are still just as delicious. You want to make sure, absolutely sure, to save this in some sort of airtight container, because again, if you live in a humid environment like North Carolina, like if you're in Arizona, it may not matter as much, but everything sucks up all this moisture all through the winter and through the summer. Pretty much 90% of the time it's humid here. So we made a lot today. We made savory apple sausage oats. We made butternut squash, kale, oat groat risotto. We made an Indian spiced, kind of like a garam masala, cashew, raisin granola, salad topping, soup topping, and also even like, let's say what would be really cool would be to take some zoodles, or if you can get the big carrots, like carrot spirals too, we could cook those up. We could put some kind of interesting sauce and top it with these, or you could make this for different things too. You could have like an Asian kind of granola topping as well, something that's crunchy and interesting to you. Maybe use 5 spice powder, maybe use some peanuts. I'm trying to think of, I probably would just put some date sugar in it over anything else. We made sausage patties and sausage burgers for English muffins, so that I could actually make like one of those to-go English muffin sandwiches and put them in the freezer, so Cheryl could take one to work and heat it up there. If you were going to do that, you would take a frozen English muffin, you'd have them put the English muffin separate in a toaster and just microwave. If that's all they have at work, microwave the sausage. And we made pepperoni crumbles. So we made a lot of different things, and hopefully, did you guys learn at least one new thing that you can do with oats in a savory way? Because I sure hope so. I hope you learned more than one, but I know a lot of you have been working with oats for a long time too. Okay, awesome, you guys. You did it. You made it through all the oats. Woo! And I made it through 5 things in less than 3 hours, which is never happens. So you guys take this extra half hour, and don't forget, so last class, Podia did something weird, and it wasn't showing you the YouTube video under the webinar. I will be putting this on the class as well. So if you can't get to the webinar, check the class, Savory Oats. Also, I have the recipes for you on Savory Oats. I'll make some notes about things that I did today, and I'll put that up as well. Okay, awesome. You guys are so wonderful, and thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions, put them in Podia, or you can email me at kathyhester@gmail.com, and I will get a link to all the things for this class ready for you. Have an amazing weekend.